I come back from India. I stay in Bombay. That's where I run my agency. The name is What Consult. We've been around in the space for the last 5 years now. We started back in India in 2007, being a pure play social media agency, working with several brands. And I'll give you a gist of what we've done, where we come from, and then take it from there to the topic. So we are a young team. Just to give you a sense of the kind of brands we handle Procter & Gamble, so Pantene, Vela, Olay, all of this in the Indian market. We've just, in this current year, started branching out to the Middle East. We now handle Tim Hortons. You must have had the coffee out here. So the social media presence for Tim Hortons for UAE is handled by us. And that gives us a sense of a little bit of exposure in the Middle Eastern markets as well. So largely we have 5 years in the space, been tracking the social media space across Facebook, Twitter, and the current hot topic, Pinterest, and have been seeing various brands grow on the space. And one of the key topics that comes in is not the brands communicating with the consumers, but the consumers communicating back with the brands. And that is customer relationship management. It has changed dynamically from what it used to be pre-internet or pre-social media. And I'll take you to some of that as well, right? These are the set of the clients that we handle back in India. Some of them are global names, like SAP, Ford, are global names that we handle out of India. Yeah, just moving on. That's the topic. Now, CRM traditionally used to happen through 3 channels, right? First of it was sales, then marketing, and then service and support. Sales is the first step for any brand or company to engage with the customer. It's like the first handshake. You introduce yourself, you say that, this is who we are, you hand out the sales brochure, and this is how it was done traditionally. The way CRM used to work traditionally, where your sales person or sales executive came, knocked on your door, said, this is what we sell, this is who we are. Then it probably, there was a reinforcement through marketing where billboards, print ads or internet ads would reinforce saying, this is who we are, this is what the brand is. And eventually, once the customer bought your product, then the service and support would come into picture. So it was very compartmentalized. It was segregated into 3 different departments. It functioned seamlessly because no department needed to talk to each other largely. If there was a disconnect between what was sold and then what was bought by the consumer, the service team had to handle it, explain to the consumer. There was no routing back to the marketing team. There was no content or proof available that the sales overpromised or the marketing overpromised or the service underdelivered. There was no proof, right? It was all via telephonic conversations. At best, it was print in terms of people signing on purchase orders and stuff like that, right? There was no concept of email as well in the traditional CRM sense. This has started changing. Social CRM, the customer is at the center of advocacy and experience. And the key word here is advocacy. Advocacy means a customer actually advocating or not advocating or advocating against a brand. And now that's become important because everything that you see around you is archived. It's permanent. It's there for everyone to see. So let's say a customer has had a bad experience with Ford, which makes cars. He can post it on a car website, a forum, on the Facebook page, on Twitter, and there are other consumers that are connected to him who can know about this. And then this information can not only be archived, it also travels. And hence, advocacy and experience comes into picture. And this is where you see this outer ring of marketing, PR, service support, and sales being one and not compartmentalized anymore. You can't have them in separate silos. If they don't talk to each other, you have a social media disaster waiting to happen. Somebody in your team, in your organization, needs to be able to connect these 3 departments seamlessly when you're looking at social CRM. And that is the transformation that CRM has taken. There's also a CRM process now. You look at social media, you need a listening tool. Consumers are talking out there, they're talking on several platforms, be it Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, blogs, message boards, forums, whatever. And you need to constantly listen to what your consumers are saying. Earlier, a consumer would write an email or possibly send you a letter on feedback at whatever.com, or he may post you a letter, and you have many products saying, if you have a complaint, send us your mail on PO box so and so. That has changed completely. Consumers do not have patience. Can anyone in the audience tell me what's the average time spent that a consumer makes on a website before he rejects it or logs out of it? What's the average time that a consumer spends on a website before he rejects it? Or 20 seconds? Anybody else? 2-3 minutes. Anybody else? Sorry? Okay. Have you heard of the movie Gone in 60 Seconds? So just cut the zero out. 6 seconds. The average consumer takes 6 seconds to decide whether he stays on a website or leaves it. That's the average time for a consumer, 6 seconds. So clearly the consumer is impatient, and he's looking at not coming to your post box, not writing mails to you, the old traditional snail mail. He's not even willing to open up his inbox and write a email to you complaining. He's just going to update his Twitter status right from his phone when he's angry with you. He's not going to wait. And that clearly is the listening tool that you need to ensure that these are the communication channels that are captured and are logged. Even a consumer who mentions that he's bought your product needs to be captured, because that's an existing consumer you can engage with later, right? Now, post logging that customer data, you can segregate based on profiles, interactions, history, and then you can do a human decision whether you need to, what kind of response that you need to take, whether it's a standard response or whether it's a customized response on basis of the consumer complaint or the conversation that's happened on social media. So clearly the process is use a technology tool, and there are many of these listening tools available for various verticals. Most famous ones globally are Radian 6, and there's also Alterian, which is SM2, which allows you to track all social media platforms together. So you use a technology tool, log your data, get a person on your end to segregate this data based on what needs to be responded to and what doesn't need to be responded to. And those are the two things that you do. Moving on, the evolution of CRM. So let's just look at how it is clearly evolved. There are assigned departments earlier which I mentioned, which is marketing, sales, and service and support. It's all amalgamated into one, right? The consumer can complain to anyone. If a consumer is desperate and really, really irate, he'll just look up the person's Twitter profile and see, even if it's your CEO of your company on Twitter, he may reply to him and complain. And that's what ends up happening if your management team is active on social media. They may end up getting complaints from various departments which are not even related to them. So clearly, social CRM means everyone is involved. There are company-defined processes in CRM, which is the traditional CRM pre-social media. Now there are customer-defined processes. The customer doesn't want you to tell him to send an email or to wait for 14 days. That's just not done in the age where every tweet is happening in the next 5 to 10 seconds. The customer wants it here and now. He wants to get a reply today, maybe this moment itself. Business hours. There are no business hours. The customer sets the hours, right? He can tweet, blog about you at any time. And that's where a 24-hour cycle comes in to picture. He will not wait that, okay, 9 to 5 is the hour when I have to express my discomfort or my complaint about so-and-so brand. And most of the complaints that we have tracked across our experience have been actually in prime time, or it is pre 10 o'clock in the morning. Usually the complaints that are posted across social media for consumer-centric brands, be it appliances, be it cars, it's usually after work when a person is traveling back and he realizes that something is not working for him, or he reaches back home and realizes that some product has stopped working, or his complaint over the last 3-4 weeks has not been answered by your complaint services department, is when he goes online at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and puts up his complaint. So clearly it's not a 9 to 5 complaint channel that works. Earlier it was defined channels. You had a mail, you had a phone call, which is a customer service center. Now there are customer-driven dynamic channels. The customer could go anywhere. Tomorrow the customer puts up a complaint via YouTube. If you are not present on YouTube or not tracking YouTube, the video channel, or the video uploads there, you will have a problem, because now there is a video that's become viral about your customer service. Such was the case with one construction company back in India, where actual resident of the construction company, when he had taken up one of their flats or apartments, took a video and recorded all the leakages, all the unfinished construction work that they had left while giving him the apartment or flat. And the tagline of that construction company was "the best in the world for you." And he used that tagline again and again, saying that, is this the best in the world for you? Look at that unfinished children's play area. Look at this unfinished bath room. Look at this unfinished hall. And that video, within a span of 2 months, got more than 10,000 views. And that brand or that construction company was present on Facebook. They were doing some activity on Twitter, but obviously they weren't tracking YouTube. And soon that story was also in the mainline newspapers with a small article in one of the daily tabloids that are coming every daily in the morning in India. So clearly there was an explosion of that negative communication. The construction company did not have the wherewithal or what you call the required manpower to manage this kind of communication, this kind of video, which was clearly visually showing what was wrong with their quality of construction. And that had a big damage to their reputation as well back in India. So these are things that you need to consider. Transaction. Earlier, customer service was a transaction. Okay, you solve this problem, I'm fine. Now it's an interaction, and it's an archived interaction. So for example, if somebody's complained on a forum, let's say you're a bike company, you make bikes, and something is wrong with your bike, and on a biking forum somebody has complained. That is an archived interaction. If you don't respond to it, anybody else reading it builds a perception about your brand. Ignoring it is like saying it didn't exist, but it does exist. And it exists on a bike forum that might be getting a lot of traction, a lot of visitors from various sources, which could be your prospective customers. So it's utmost important to respond to every query. Even if you start today and your queries might be some 2 months, 3 months, or even 6 months older, which you have not responded to, it's utmost important to respond to them and state the next what you call step that the consumer needs to take for him to resolve your query. For example, what's your product ID? What's your consumer complaint number, if he has one? If he can share that on social media with you, you can investigate his case and resolve the query back as well. Finally, inside out. Earlier the customer service was inside out, now it's outside in. Right? Earlier there would be complaints coming in, and the customer service team took a call at what pace it wants to resolve complaints. Now that's not the case. You can't decide the pace at which you want to resolve complaints. The complaints are coming all over social media. It's your job to look at it and decide whether you want to answer these or you want this negative perception to build. Some case studies, and these are global, and I'll come to an Indian case study and show you how we track it for our customers as well. Best Buy. Best Buy employee communities grew by 2,200 employees within 3 months and responded to over 13,000 customers. So they have an employee community which is active on social media that responds to customers, right? And this is proof on how they are doing it. They have a Twitter feed called 12 Force, now counts over 29,000 followers, and the number of question averages 100 to 125 per day. The way they have looked at this is, solving customer queries is the best form of marketing, because you've answered their query, whether they want to buy this phone or that phone. Right? It's not always complaints. It could be just plain queries, a decision-making process that the customer is going through, which you can aid him with. And that's what Best Buy does internationally. We did this for a skincare brand, which is also available here. It's called Olay, which is by Procter & Gamble. One of our objectives with our Facebook strategy was to respond to women's skin-related queries, anything to do with skin. Right? My skin is getting flaky, or how do I get, at what time of the day should I apply Olay? Can I apply it with different kinds of makeups? All of those kind of queries was answered on the Facebook page itself, where the interaction grew multifold purely because we were honestly interested in answering customers' queries and not pushing our products. And that seriously helps with customers trying to get engaged with your brand. Moving on, Comcast. Comcast Cares on Twitter, the customer service center, attracted 2,700 followers, and more important, from a social CRM standpoint, many who were critics of the company changed to a raving fan. This is really important. A response-oriented customer relationship with, management is very important. I'll give you another example. One of our other beauty clients back in India, a person commented on their Facebook page saying, you guys do animal testing. Now that's a big claim, a blame on a big beauty brand, that you do animal testing and that's why I will never buy your products. So there was a response needed, and here was an irate, negative customer who needed to be converted into a positive customer. What should the brand do? The brand, when I spoke to them and we were consulting them at that point, said that yes, we do animal testing, but it is mandated by certain governments to test skin-related products on animals before we can launch it in the market. So it's not that we want to do it, but it's mandated by the government to do it. We can't, as a law-abiding company, we can't get out of it. So same response, we drafted it in a nice, courteous way, and we responded to this consumer on social media. That animal testing comment did not spiral out into many consumers coming together and hounding the brand. And that response, being quick enough within the next 1.5 hours to respond to that customer, ended the topic there. Right? For us, that was very, very critical because this was a large brand with a large footprint across India. And that claim of you doing animal testing is a sensitive issue in most markets. Right? Next is GM. GM launched Fastlane, one of the first blogs personally written by senior executives. So it's not only an agency or a nameless person that can do customer relationship management. Even your senior team members can log on to social media and build thought leadership with consumers or customers one-on-one, right? So a blog saved the company $180,000 a year versus traditional focus group research, because the customer feedback that was being given across this blog was directly being absorbed by the senior executive, who were then giving a go-ahead to the modifications or the launches that were there happening in GM. And that was the way this was handled. Harley Davidson, Harley owners created a website and a social community which is called the hdtalking.com. Now has 40,000 members. This is basically a community for customers to engage with each other. So here you see there are several examples of CRM. It's not just one, it's multiple as to how you engage with several customers. It's not just query management, it's not complaints, it's not insight or research. It can also be community building with customers one-on-one. And that's what Harley Davidson has done. Moving on, Baby Center. This is by Johnson & Johnson. This is actually the biggest example of customer relationship management. Johnson & Johnson actually created an entire platform for mothers and Baby Center, where all the information that mothers would require, expectant mothers, is available. And you see the size of this community. It's almost 8 million and new and expectant moms in the US and in other 21 countries. Now this is Johnson & Johnson's way to manage the relationships with various customers, and it's almost become a profit center for them, this platform, which is Baby Center. Going ahead, I'll just show you something of how we do. We have a client back in India called Godrej Appliances. Now Godrej Appliances makes all the kind of home appliances you can think of. They make washing machines, televisions, microwaves. They make the air conditioners, as well as they have vacuum cleaners and stuff as well. So they are into the home appliances space. Most of their consumers, you would believe, won't complain online, but that's not the case. And I'll show you how we track their complaints and to what level we track complaints and manage customer relationships. Just to show you, totally. This is over a month, they have 90 brand mentions where their brand is mentioned and 315 complaints that were made. So we have social media tools that help us track these complaints. Now tracking is not enough. What do we do? How do we segregate so that we can intelligently reply to them, right? We have them brand wise. So we actually track them across platforms. So whether they are coming from classifieds, from Facebook, from forums, whether it's from any other source like Twitter, and we put them in a pie chart. We also track tonality. So how many of them are positive and how many of them are neutral in terms of brand mentions. In terms of consumer complaints, we actually have all their complaints logged over the years. So how many number of complaints they've had, 140 and more. We also then track by website. So which website has been
where they are getting maximum complaints. So as you can see, this particular website, the red one, is where maximum complaints are coming or being posted. So that becomes a key website for them to track in terms of managing their customer relationships, right? They have to be on that website regularly to track who is complaining about them, who are these users. We also track down the users geographically and figure out which city they are complaining from, also which product and model number. So you come to know that kind of insight as well. There's breakup of tone, whether it's negative and positive in terms of complaint, and these are the cities or what you call as the states back in India where the several complaints are coming in from. So as you can see, Maharashtra, which is a state in India, there are the maximum complaints. Now this is where they can mobilize their on-ground service staff and ensure that the complaints from which centers there are maximum complaints, those are serviced better, right? So that gives you a location-based information as far as complaints is concerned. Secondly, because they have several products, we have further bifurcation by products. So we can tell our client from air conditioners, from which city or which state they are getting maximum complaints for air conditioners vis-a-vis, let's say, televisions, vis-a-vis, let's say, microwaves and so on and so forth, and washing machines. So that gives the client, who is in this case a multi-product client which has appliances of various kind, an insight as to where his maximum complaints are coming from and what are these complaints for which product and which model number, and hence can possibly pull out that model from the market or upgrade that model quickly as far as appliances is concerned. And these are the various lag time of responses. As you can see, the lag time of responses has been coming down, and we reduce it to maximum 3 days, because you need to get back to the client, come back and figure out what the complaint is about, which model number, is it a genuine complaint, so on and so forth, and hence you have reduction of lag time of responses. These are obviously the different types of products that they have, air conditioners, washing machines, and which one has been getting more complaints, appliance-wise complaints, and responses that are addressed on social media. Now this chart is very important. What this chart actually tells people is the responses and how many of the responses have been addressed or not addressed. So at any point or in any day of the month, you can know if there were 500 queries, how many of them were responded to, how many of them remain unaddressed, and how many of them require a special addressal by the team back at the client's level. So this allows you to then have a daily pie chart of where do I need to respond more and why responses have not been made to customers. If customers have been left unaddressed, why is that? And that's your custom responses, your inadequate details. So this pie chart, this part of we still have inadequate details about the customer. We may not have his product ID, his complaint number to be able to adequately respond to him. And that's how this pie chart helps to know how your customer relationship management is doing on social media per se, right? So that's just an example that I wanted to give you from our experience back in India. Any questions, and I'll be happy to take them. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes.
What software system you use to monitor the? Because you're sharing all those charts and.
Okay, so those charts are manually created. There are logging tools. Manually created, it means I have two people who are logging the data and then creating the charts. We have an Excel log and a pivot chart that automatically a pivot table that automatically create these charts. So it's an in-house kind of creation. But in terms of logging data is concerned, as I mentioned, there are several tools to log keywords which are associated with your brands. So there's Radian 6, there's Altarian, and these are several online tools. If you just did a Google on social media monitoring tools, you would get at least 100 options that you can look at. But that's not enough, because for example, if you look at Virgin Mobile, Virgin and mobile are two separate keywords. If you put them together also on social media, it may not give you the right kind of results, also the right kind of context. Also, if you are looking at geography, like we have brands in India like Ford. Now Ford is a global brand. If I just do Ford Fiesta or Ford whatever other car, they are available globally. It doesn't give me the India sentiment for that car. So you need to have actual people working who are segregating that data and putting it in context of the market that you're working in, as well as in context of the product that you're working in for. So it may require human, as you called, interface and intervention as far as social CRM is concerned. Yeah? Does that make sense?
Well,
Meltwater is there, but clearly from the Indian context, Meltwater actually bought an Indian company which was doing social media monitoring, right? We've used all the tools, but we've not seen the kind of in-depth results that we want to see for specific of our clients, like the model number of each product and which complaint for that model number is coming from which geography in India. No tool can give you that specifically for Godrej, right? Because the model numbers might be different, right, for different products. So having a human intervention allows us to go deeper for our clients and give them much deeper insights related to their several products. Yeah.
if I might just may add, because we're in the media monitoring business, the tools are irrelevant. It's how it's set up. So either you need to have people who are in your company,
Right.
an organization, who know how to configure and set things up, and by that meaning set up search criteria, figure out what they're searching for, be able to filter out noise, that kind of thing, whether it's in-house or third party. But the tool itself, there's so many tools out. Some cost money, some are free. That's not really the important part of the formula.
Something that I don't know because I came late, so sorry.
Yeah.
But what attracted me, and I came here, and maybe you were talking about something. We're talking about CRM,
Yeah.
and actually, what brought me here, I was trying to see, and nobody talked about it. Maybe I mean, as long as I attended, how do you take all those leads that you are getting from social media or online marketing, and nurture them in your CRM system?
Okay.
And like measure the loyalty and all those extra factors.
So if you look at Radian 6, it's been bought over by Salesforce, and they have made a connection between Salesforce and Radian 6. So in fact, sales leads and managing them is one of the easiest things to do in Salesforce and Radian 6, the tool that is there. In addition to that, when you're looking at customer query management, there's this tool called getsatisfaction.com. You can check it out. It's an online forum creator for all your consumer queries and complaints management, which can also create sales leads for you, which can go back into the system. So those are two opportunities so as sales leads are concerned. Yeah. Any other questions?
Great. Thank you
Yeah,
very much, Mr.
thanks.
Rajiv.